We should talk about it some more, actually, the story about the word woman and this idea of it being an unacceptable word for some particular reason. There are a couple of people on the tweet who said, look, it's just because J.K. Rowling was on the list. That is what it is about.
But we don't know. We're guessing because they haven't actually said.
If anyone's just joining us, Oxfam have removed a game called Wonder Women from sale, and that's because they haven't specified why, but they've said it's because of some unspecified complaints from their transgender and non-binary employees, and so therefore celebrating women who have achieved stuff seems to be in some way unacceptable. But interestingly, and I always refer to this when we have this debate, if you go to the NHS website, what is cervical screening, right? Cervical screening, third point down, all women and people with a cervix aged 25 to 64 should be invited by letter, right? I get that. I think that's probably the best way to deal with that. All women and people. Women is the word used first because it will be women with the majority of people who have a cervix, and people. Go to the prostate page. Prostate enlargement is a very common condition associated with aging. More than 1 in 3 of all men over 50 will have some symptoms. Not men and people with a prostate, just men.
Yeah.
And I see your point in saying that it's women who seem to be the sex that is
asked to move over.
Yeah.
But that's because that's true of life in general. Women are generally asked to move over to make space for men. Now, I think that actually the men's charities have got this right to keep hold of the word men. It is important because not everybody knows what these specific terms are. Like, we're using cervix and prostate, like everyone knows what they mean. I can tell you they don't. I've photographed and interviewed 100 women about their bits and 100 men about their bits. Not everybody knows the words. So if what you're trying to do is encourage people to come forward for a vital health check, they need to know it's for them. And so that's why you have to use clear language. So say women and people with a cervix.
I think that's probably the compromise, is women and people, or women and trans people. I think that's probably the compromise that would keep everyone happy. But I think it should be in the order of the majority who has it first, and that's women should be first. And I think the idea of removing the word, and what people don't understand in this is the historical context. Women have had to fight historically for their right for reproductive health care. Reproductive discrimination is a huge part of the discrimination that women have felt over centuries. And what is frustrating in this argument is that, and it's easy for me to say this as a man, but what's frustrating in this argument is that that's sort of set aside. It's completely forgotten about, when actually it's a huge bone of contention for many women, and that's why they deserve to be listened to.
Well, talking about recent fights, that's the other thing about this card game. It's really only in the last couple of generations that women have had the vote, have been able to go to university and qualify as professors and to reach the top of their professional tree. And so in this tiny, tiny short window of time that women have been allowed to excel professionally, it's already causing offence. And little girls can't have this inspirational card game for sale. It is bonkers, and I really think Oxfam need to look to their own house first. It's not that long ago that Oxfam workers, senior workers, were buying sex from vulnerable women in Haiti, which was a really, really unpalatable, unpleasant story. That was completely wrong.
And I bet they weren't sort of saying, we'd like to buy sex from a vulnerable person, please.
Well,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
I'm quite sure when they were booking whatever, sex they wanted, I'm quite sure that they were quite specific about what they were asking for.
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, stories like this, I think they create a backlash. They do a lot of damage. They don't really understand. They don't really advance understanding between people. They just tick people off. It's completely the wrong way to go about things.
All right, let's talk about another story that you want to discuss today. This is apparently this new form of currency that we're going to be getting, the Britcoin.
So yeah, Britcoin, cool name. Can't argue with the name. It is great. It's riffing off Bitcoin and Brit, Great Britain, etc. So on the 14th of October, the Treasury released a lovely shiny video with Rishi Sunak talking about central bank digital currencies, about how great it is that the G7 are looking into them, and he's set up a task force to investigate what Britcoin could look like. Now, it's only a brief video. You wouldn't expect it to cover everything, but it didn't cover some of the issues that I think people would be really interested in. Now, a central bank digital currency could work in a couple of different ways. You could have a token-based central bank digital currency, and so that would be similar to cash, to digital cash now. You would have a token, it's fungible. That means it's the equivalent to other tokens, and you can trade it, and it's transactable to you, the holder of the token. Or you can have an account-based central bank digital currency, which is enmeshed with your identity. And that type of currency can be programmable, and that's where it gets interesting. And of course, this video didn't mention anything about these programmable aspects. So what could programmable look like? Well, that means that one party in the transaction, so that could be the central bank, the government, it could be your employer, can set controls over how the money is spent by the recipient of the money. So for instance, let's think of some crazy ideas. It could be that you have to spend your money within a certain time frame. It could be you have different interest rates for different people. It could be that you can only spend your benefits on food or essential medicines. The options actually are quite endless.
So the end user of that money, or the person who distributes that money, could put controls on the way that money is spent, but also the value of that money to different people. So if you've got a clean credit score and a good interest rate, if you are to go, that money could be worth more to you than it would be for someone who perhaps is on benefits, or someone who doesn't have a clean credit score.
Yeah, the options really are endless. Now, one of the countries that's
Could that money also be just withdrawn if you are someone who is naughty and the state doesn't like you?
It could be, or it could be that, something like, say they need to stimulate the economy. It could be that you've only got a month to spend your money. I'm thinking of really crazy extreme examples, or that suddenly you have a negative interest rate. It could be that you can only spend it in a certain area. Let's say that it's enmeshed with identity and you've used up your carbon allowance. Maybe you can't buy any more petrol that month. And these things sound like they're beyond the realm of possibility, but they're really not. I mean, MasterCard, if you look at MasterCard, they're trialling a card now, which is voluntary, that also tracks your carbon footprint, and you can set limits. So when you've spent your carbon footprint, you can't spend anymore. It's all voluntary, but you can see how it could be also enmeshed within a central bank digital currency. Now, China started researching these in 2014 and has done lots of trials. And as you can imagine, their currency will be enmeshed with identity. So it's interesting to see what China's doing with this. Rishi Sunak hasn't made any mention of this so far. And in fact, if you look at the task forces, which are made up of the Treasury and the Bank of England, they haven't really said much about these programmable qualities. But this is the thing to look out for. So there are very big privacy concerns. Some people have called central bank digital currencies government surveillance coins. It completely redefines what money is. It will completely redefine your relationship with money.
It's all about as well. This is something I really passionately feel about, the erosion of cash.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be getting rid of cash. Someone put it in a really great way late night when I was talking about it one night, is that we're sleepwalking. We're not even sleepwalking. We are asking for a digital dictatorship.
Well, you see, if we have cash, then it's peer-to-peer. I can buy something from you with cash and nobody knows about it. No, the government doesn't know. But if you have a central bank digital currency, there's the possible to have complete surveillance over everything you do. And anonymity can be set or not set according to the central bank.
The state, which is the state.
The state, exactly. So there are stakeholders on these task forces that are investigating CBDCs, and I always think stakeholder is an interesting term. So it wasn't easy to find who's on the task forces, but it's people at the Bank of England, at commercial banks, in retail. Very few people who would represent civil rights, and none of us. We're all stakeholders because it's our money and our relationship with money that could be completely redefined.
Very worrying. Listen, our time is against us.